Good evening, St. Louis, and welcome into STL Sports Central and the cards. Excuse me, City Central postgame. Either way, it's not a fun one tonight. Whatever postgame you're jumping into, it's not a fun one. This is the City Central postgame, and it's the later of the two. And even less positive maybe in this one, as we are live from STL Sports Central. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button. It might not seem like a fun thing right now, but every time one of these teams does play, we do go live, we do talk about it, so hit the bell button so you'll know when that's happening. And maybe one of these days we'll come to you in a post game talking about a win. I'm Matthew
Like
Rocchio.
last weekend.
That's Will Bratton. Sure, let's talk about the past.
One of only 4 times that's happened.
Exactly. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Will Bratton. And that was a pretty crappy game for St. Louis City SC. Yeah. Your thoughts, Will?
Yeah, that was a pretty crappy game from St. Louis City SC. End statement.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Well, to see you guys next time here on STL Sports.
That is what some fans, I think, actually would appreciate us doing. It's just, that was bad. We suck. Peace out.
We'll see you guys.
We'll do a little bit more than that.
Yeah, look, from St. Louis, it was a bad match in terms of capitalizing on opportunities. Dallas allowed St. Louis to just enter the final third, repeatedly. I mean, 62 times to be exact, which I think is their most on the season. Entries into the final third. They were doing it with passes, with carries. Dallas didn't really care. They were comfortable in their low block, their Melberg style ball, and it destroyed St. Louis. City did not utilize the flanks at all in the first half, so they didn't break it down at all. They weren't all that threatening in the first half. The second half was much better, but still not nearly good enough. And Edouard Leuven was a key difference maker in the improvement aspect. But it doesn't really matter if you play a little better if you still suck and score 0 goals. So that's kind of what we saw. Some highlights, I guess I can throw out if I want to say something positive. Tomas Ostrak for the second straight match had a fantastic match in possession. Defensively for the second straight match really pissed me off sometimes. Yaziel Orozco had a really good match until he decided to give a PK away for absolutely no reason. At the end of the match, resulting in the third goal for Dallas, which completely shut everything down for St. Louis. And Edouard Leuven played, and he was fine. He did well. I don't think I have anything else positive to say about this match. I mean, Roman Berkey had a couple of good moments, good saves. But those saves, you want to see your goalkeeper make good saves and be positive about that. But when he's making saves to bail your teammates out, it's really frustrating. When he's making saves because the opponent made a fantastic play and it was up to your goalkeeper to keep it out of the net, you can celebrate those moments, and your goalkeeper made a difference. But in this case, it was the back line that was leaving Berkey out to dry, and we've seen this numerous times this year. This is nothing new. There's nothing new I'm going to talk about tonight, realistically. Besides the fact, I guess, that we didn't have Celio Pompeu to dribble on the left-hand side. And so we had Betcher and Toyshirt playing the wings. And I've talked about how much I absolutely hate that. So it didn't go well, in case anyone was wondering and didn't know by the 0-3 scoreline. Cedric Toyshirt had a very poor performance and got yanked in the 60th minute by Critchley. And that was, in my opinion, 100% performance-based and not fitness-based, and definitely was not injury-based. And yeah, Betcher wasn't much better. He also was eventually taken out. Jean de Silva was okay off the bench. Honestly, I've not liked any of his matches off the bench at all this year. I thought he was fine, though, in this match. Like, he was a difference maker in a couple of plays, and he was defensively responsible, which I haven't seen him do at all when he's been on the pitch for St. Louis City. So that was different. I'm really grasping at straws here. There's a piñata, and I'm yanking the strings, and no candy's coming out because I'm pulling at absolutely nothing, trying to say anything positive about this match because, for lack of better words, it sucked.
I'm really confused by your analogy. Why are you pulling on piñata strings? Why aren't you just hitting it with a bat?
The piñatas where you pull the strings, but one of them opens it. One of them doesn't yank out, and it pulls the trap door open, and all the candy comes out.
You and I played with different piñatas growing up.
That's a thing.
I know.
Back me up in the chat. That's a thing.
I know one piñata, and that's the one you hit with a bat.
Well, yes, I know that's the most talked about.
I know no other piñatas is my problem.
I promise you, it's a thing.
Hey, listen, I'll take your word for it. I was swimming blind on that explanation. We are on the City Central post game presented by STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. We'll tell you more about DraftKings and their new game, the Pick 6 app, which you can play right now in Missouri. But we're going to get to the chats, always our loyal chatters here on STL Sports Central. I guess we have our answer from last week. If that was a sign of things to come, or they just caught Portland having an off day. I think that's partially it. But yeah, just David Critchley talking about, it was this kind of a turnaround, and clearly if it was a turnaround, it was a short-lived one. And
it had the chance to be.
It's you want to seem like this team's building up momentum, but when you put a game out like that, all the momentum immediately dies. And I know the coaching staff's not going to think that way. David Critchley will talk this week about trying to build momentum in training, but for all intents and purposes, for everyone involved right now, it feels like the momentum died tonight.
Yeah, no, the momentum absolutely died tonight, and it's a reset point. The summer window opens in 5 days. We'll see Falou Fall become available, obviously still pending the receipt of his visa, so he hasn't begun training with the team just yet, but we're hoping, we could see that this week. That would be nice if he was available maybe for sub minutes against Minnesota to make his debut, and then he's fit the subsequent weekend, I believe, against Nashville. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't expect that to happen. I would expect from last year to count backwards from the end of the season 9 games, and that's the first game that you should expect to see Falou Fall, because that was all the new players last year played 9 games or were available off the not starting, but I think they were all available pretty much for 9 games at the end of the season.
The one thing that could be
Seti, Hartle, Bescher, and Horn. I think they all had 9 games. So that's kind of, I think, the date to select for Falou Fall. Lutz Pfannenstiel joined us on the Randy Carricker show on Friday and talked about that. And he made a point about the importance of integrating him and getting him feel comfortable before they actually play him and start relying on him. So I think that'll be a big factor.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that could be different this time around is the Minnesota boys just coming from MLS. They're already
Minnesota could help. Yeah. Minnesota.
Those guys could definitely be available to play maybe against their former club as sub minutes, but definitely the following match for sure. Assuming they come this week when the window opens up, which I would imagine is going to be the case. Of course, we're talking about Sungmin Jung, a U22 South Korean right winger, and Devin Paddleford, a 22-year-old Minnesota homegrown who will be joining on loan. And then Falou Fall, obviously already announced. Maybe some other moves in the works for St. Louis City. Nothing certain just yet. But
by the way, if you're wondering about those players, Sungmin Jung is a right winger, classic right winger, kind of replaces Rasmus Alm. Paddleford is a slightly less Canadian Kyle Hebert.
Yeah, he's a little less Canadian. I think he's a little younger and a little better on the ball. I mean, he's definitely younger, but he's
slightly less Canadian Kyle Hebert.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? That's a really, okay.
He's from Minnesota too, just a couple miles off difference.
Yeah.
He's slightly less Canadian Kyle Hebert. Bill Reloaded.
It says like too.
Is it time to send Lutz packing? I just don't think you can say that when he's clearly has been given the keys to make some changes in this window, and we haven't got to see the players that he's added in this window. And so far, the players that he is adding seem to be exactly fitting what St. Louis City needs. So I think that's just it's stepping out too far to say that Lutz needs to be sent back. And I just the roster construction has issues. The injuries don't make that any easier. But I think if a lot of teams, if they had 5 or 6 of their best players injured, they'd probably be struggling as well.
Yeah, look, here's the realistic thing. If you want a scenario where it's okay to send Lutz packing and to have that comment, it's you let this window go by. And let me be clear, this team's not going to get drastically better after the summer window in a couple of weeks. Now, they might improve. They might start winning a couple more games, but they're not going to get drastically better. The opportunity for them to get drastically better is when Lutz does a little bit of a roster overhaul this winter, because there's going to probably be at least 6 players leaving the St. Louis City side. So you'll expect at least 5 or 6 signings to join in return for that. So that's the opportunity where if this team isn't better immediately in March of next year and they don't start, have a good start to the season, that's the point at which you can start looking at Lutz, because this season has been a complete bust with a fraudulent head coach, terrible injury bug. And now, you can say, oh, he hasn't done enough. Well, he's bringing up City 2 guys, so you can't argue about that. And they've obviously not been the solution, as Yaziel Orozco has played pretty well, but has given away 2 goals now in 3 matches, one with a PK tonight and the other with a poor passing attempt, I believe, in his first match that he played against RSL. So, while he's been good, he's not been the solution. Other guys like Tyson Pierce and Mackay Joyner, they are good players that can do things for you, but they're not your solution. and he's still putting them on the roster. He's still bringing them up. So you can't make that argument. And the summer window, you can't make that argument either because it hasn't even opened yet. How can you say the summer window would have made them win this game when the summer window isn't open yet? So your options are suck it up. And if you're still dead set on that opinion before the winter starts, you do you, but that's the wrong choice in my opinion. If you still feel that way after St. Louis comes out in March and they don't look good, that's completely justified. And that's a conversation we'll have. But right now, the let's out mentality is just completely based on the team isn't winning games. It's not based on actually analyzing the moves that have been made by the sporting director. It's just based on have the players been scoring enough goals to outscore their opponent and win soccer games. And so I want to not deal with that conversation, at least in this post-match show.
Daniel Guevara says they need to bring in a six. The winter is hard to sign players who are playing mid-season in Europe. I don't expect much to change in the winter. Well, the problem is you, like most people, are only thinking about the main leagues in Europe, and the league they just signed their most expensive player from ever isn't mid-season in winter. They are off-season in winter in Norway. Also, everyone wants them to sign South American teams. South America plays on the same schedule that the MLS plays on. So that's the offseason for those teams. So, yeah, makes it hard to buy teams from Bundesliga and second Bundesliga, but maybe they should stop doing that. Eggplant emoji says, wasn't the fraudulent head coach his hire, though? Yeah.
That's something you can criticize for sure, but you can't criticize. You can criticize that they hired him. You can't also criticize what happened when they were forced to fire him because you can't plan for that.
Apparently, they were misled in the interviewing process.
Yes, that is the word that has gone around, which is that the interview process. He interviewed very well, and he got to training in January in their preseason camps, and just like nothing aligned. And yeah, that was they just knew.
Seriously though, we're getting players to a Minnesota player on loan. I think it's and listen, this is why I wondered if the loan maybe wouldn't go through because you get a Roscoe, shores up some of the defensive depth now that you know what you have. Why give a player minutes on loan who isn't going to be here for the long haul? I'm completely with you on that one, Samuel Howe.
You got to get a body to fill that space until you can sign a serious left back in the offseason. Because that's going to be the plan.
You have older Daniel Petterford. His name's Kyle Hebert. We just went through this. You have more Canadian Daniel Petterford.
But it's very obvious that Critchley is not fond of Kyle Hebert. He hasn't played 2 minutes.
I don't care about if Critchley has a preference on our fifth center back.
So what's
for
wrong
9
with
games
on loan?
Because I want Yasiel Orozco to play. I want Jay Reed to play. I want players who actually have a potential to maybe be something in the future for this team if they show something.
Who said they won't?
They won't. But then why?
Devin Paddleford might not be starting over that.
I'm just saying, but why? But even if you don't, then don't add the money. Why are you adding contract money up for Devin Paddleford?
For the last 5 matches, they're probably paying less than $50,000.
Again, fine. Figure out a different way to spend $50,000. I don't care.
They're not
like I don't know. Throw out some free tickets to some people for a match next season instead of paying Daniel.
What's Garber bucks? They can't do anything.
It's completely
they're bound to MLS.
It's just it's
scam.
Fine, make the move. We're never going to see him, and it's just okay. Fine, they made another move. It's a pointless move, and there's no need for us to talk about it anymore because it shouldn't matter. It better not matter, and. Let's talk about Shangbing Zhang because that one's actually material. A loan for a depth player at the end of a lost season is just the most. I can't even wait. I'm done talking about it. Anthony C. Will they try to move Berkey? No. Why would they? Please explain that. Text me further.
Yeah, he's at a lower market value than he's been in years. He's the highest paid goalkeeper on the continent, I'm pretty sure. And he's still doing very well. He's your captain. He's not getting moved. The question is, does he walk as a free agent in the offseason? He will absolutely not be moving in this summer. There's absolutely no way that would happen. And ownership, front office, whatever would be foolish to try and do that. And they're not going to be foolish and try and do that. There's absolutely no way.
Speaking of things that make no sense to me. I don't know why Tyson Pierce played in this game.
Yeah, I know. I said the same thing. Why are you burning one of his appearances for crap minutes when you're down like that? It's complete waste. Throw anybody else in. Throw JGR in at wherever. Put him at striker. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Throw anybody in except a guy who's on an appearance restriction. That really pissed me off. It made no sense.
If they would have played him in like the 78th minute, it's like you're playing. It's a losing game. Fine. Play the 17-year-old. Give him a chance. Yeah. That makes sense. But we just got confirmation this week, and for those who don't know, Tyson Pierce is on a non-roster homegrown contract. That means he gets 6 call-up appearances, and we finally got confirmation this week that the call-ups only count against the player if he actually plays in the game. So Tyson Pierce has used 1, Mekhi Joyner has used 5.
Tyson's now used 2.
Yeah, I'm saying he had used 1. I thought he only played. Has he played twice? I thought that was.
I think he's played. I know he's been on the bench at least 3 or 4 times.
On the bench 3. This is the third time he was on the bench. He's played in 1 match.
Yeah, okay.
Played 28 minutes. Right. So so he's used 1. He's now played in 2.
Yeah.
And if he just sits on the bench, it doesn't count against his 6 usages. So I don't get playing him for the final 1 or 2 minutes or whatever the final would have been with stoppage time. Maybe it was 5 or 6 minutes. It makes no sense to me. That one seems like an irresponsible way to burn an appearance for one of your most important players. That one I'm completely baffled of. I cannot figure out a logical
justifiable reason that they would have played Tyson Pierce outside of there was absolutely no one on the bench that was fit and the player on the field had to come out because they were hurting. That's the only logical explanation.
Yeah, there's
when
other
they use
people
up all
on the
appearances, nothing happens. He just can't play again for the rest of the season. I do want to answer this question. Why would he, being Roman Berkey, want to stick around? I'll tell you. And let me make this very clear. Highest paid goalkeeper on the continent. Highest paid goalkeeper on the continent. That's why.
I still think that says something a lot about.
And also, he just got engaged to a girl based in Chicago. So, yeah, that and money. That's exactly why he would want to stay here. And he gets to be the captain here in a league where he's a star. I mean, that's a pretty good situation for him on a team that should be winning. Now, things didn't go well, right? And that's frustrating. I'm sure he's very upset with the way the coaching situation's been. I'm sure he's upset with his teammates' performances, blah, blah, blah. But when he's in a situation that on paper should be setting him up for like a perfect ideal life as a former Borussia Dortmund legend, why would he not want to stay outside of getting more money somewhere else?
The one thing is that he just played the last 3 years as the highest paid goalkeeper on the continent. He's now will he be 35 when the next season starts?
Yes, he will.
So
Berkey's birthday is
November
14th.
So he turns 35 at the very end of the season. I think he dodged the Bundesliga titles in Borussia in Dortmund. Did they win any in that run? He was there for 7 years. He had to be there for one of them.
No, because Marco never won anything. Remember that's the whole thing with Marco.
Marco
Royce's first trophy ever was the MLS Cup with LA Galaxy last year.
So they won 10, 11, and 11, 12. Yeah, so he's after. So his only titles, his only like hardware is they won the national tournament, the DFB Pokal in 16-17 when he was on Dortmund, and he made 33 appearances that year. So he only really has a league tournament where he was playing a lot of games to his career honors. So at 35 years old, you did just make a ton of money for 3 years. Maybe he does go title chasing a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, his best option is probably either in MLS or maybe back in the Swiss league or something.
Yeah, maybe he goes. You're not wrong, but I'm still saying there's a chance
again, that's another
age.
Reason that maybe he would want to stay if he thinks his best title.
But there's a chance at that age that he goes title hunting for a better MLS team that has a better chance at winning a title, or
possibly,
or the Swiss league, which is I think like 14 teams. So you obviously, if you go to one of the 4 teams that matters in that league, like Groningen or Young Boys, or Basel, usually Basel, I think it is. You have a really good chance at winning a bunch of titles there. So it wouldn't shock me if at that age he made that decision, because he will get paid
later, though.
He will get paid in Europe pretty well, especially in his home country like that. So I mean, he could still make a lot of money. I know his wife's in Chicago, but find me a woman in her 20s and 30s who doesn't want to go to Lucerne every weekend, and I'll find you somebody who doesn't exist. So I feel like that wouldn't be a hard argument personally in any way, shape, or form for him. So there are a lot of reasons why he would leave, but there is one very big green reason why he should stay. Yeah. And that is also a comfortability factor added to that, which he doesn't
have to move again.
He made his home in America. Does he want to make his home in a completely different American city after making his life here in St. Louis the last few years? I'm not sure, but that's that's kind of the back and forth. Shut up, Samuel Howe. God dang it. Stop bringing up the ambush. You're so rude.
Hey, goalkeepers play later into their careers too, because he could always go title hunting at 39.
Listen,
look at Brad Guzan.
Ambush currently have the man that we respectfully and very seriously refer to as the Brazilian Rob Lowe. The Rob Lowe of Arena League Soccer, because Paulo Nascimento. If I show you a picture of this guy and I told you his age, it'll knock your freaking socks off.
Really?
He's 39 years old and looks like he's 24. He's beautiful. And so Berkey has a lot of ambush competition to fight against. Anthony C. Rouse had to withdraw from the German national team because of injury during the 2014 World Cup. I know this has nothing to do with today, but if we want to talk about actual good soccer, Marco Reus is playing really well, and I can't believe that. Actually, yeah, he's actually playing well.
I haven't gotten
Shocked
to
the hell
catch
out of
Galaxy in a little bit, but when he first came to MLS, he sucked. He was terrible. So I'm curious to see.
He's got 5 goals and 3 assists in his last 8 games, and he has 5 goals and 6 assists on the season.
That's not bad.
Yeah, he's
for a last place wooden spoon.
He's really settled in. I mean, all those assists are probably just
throwing it to get
run boy run
out there somewhere.
Run Roy run to Peck and Paintsill, but still, I mean, it still works. Yeah, so I'm legitimately tonight's game sucks and the team's bad and there's a lot of things to be annoyed about. I'm legitimately annoyed about the Tyson Pierce factor. I do not.
That bothered me.
Because there's you can understand, you can find logic, and I think you can find a reason, and to a lot of the things that bother us today, why they happened, why certain lineup things happen, so on and so forth. I can't rationalize this. It's completely different if, as was nebulous and up in the air, if just getting called up onto the roster meant that it burned your call up. But after some back and forth this past week of training, Matt Baker of Flyover Footy was able to confirm that Mekhi Joyner has one more appearance left. And Mekhi Joyner did appear on a bench in a call-up. They didn't appear in a game, which means they're getting called up. And that was the 4th time he got called up. And since then, he's gotten called up 2 more times and played in those 2 times. So we know for a fact, as Mekhi Joyner has been called up 6 times and played 5, that the playing is all that matters.
Yep.
So what the hell are you doing with Tyson Pierce? I don't get it. It makes no sense. That's a bad move. See, Everything else, I think you can find reasons for. You can find, you might want to call them excuses. Fine. I can give passes for a lot of things that happened tonight. But I can't give a pass for Timo Baumgartel's play on the 3rd goal or the 2nd goal. I can't give a pass for the center mid's play on the 1st goal, and I cannot give a pass for David Critchley and company playing and burning one of Tyson Pierce's 5 remaining appearances. Unbelievable, inexcusable decision making there at the end.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good circular bring it together of what is the main frustration with this match. Those are the 3 points that you should be actually thinking about, because the rest of it is just, it's not even worth the energy.
Yeah, I have nothing to look forward to. That's the thing. When
you only want to focus on the positives when they're this bad, because that's the only thing that will matter, next year is what things can you build off of, because you're not going to make the playoffs. You don't need to be trying to say they need to be winning every single game right now, because they're not going to.
And we have to focus on the negatives that'll carry into next year. So we can talk again about how, if you keep playing this system without a better 6,
real wingers and a real 6, you're going to lose.
You're going to keep getting exposed in the back areas, and you're going to keep leaving yourself open in certain areas. And they're apparently okay with being exposed in this way, because they're pushing people forward. They're playing the 6s in an extremely aggressive fashion. So apparently this team is okay with having to win games 3-2 and not being very good at it.
Yes, soccer does have healthy scratches. They just they don't travel, or they don't get rostered in the squad. It's not really called anything. They're allowed to do it, to however many times they want. It doesn't have a term, but yes, it does exist. That would have been Celio Pompeu technically, because he's not on an injured list. He was a quote unquote healthy scratch, but that's because he's dealing with some shoulder pain from his collision against Portland last weekend.
And if you really want to dive into the nitty gritty, it doesn't happen in the MLS, but in other leagues, they sometimes have contracts where you get individual bonuses for whether or not you play. Yeah. And so
I think that is a thing in MLS. I'm pretty sure.
They have season-long bonuses, but I'm saying
incentives though.
They have season-long incentives, but I don't think they have game-by-game incentives like you do in Europe. There are European contracts where if you don't get rostered, you don't get a $600 like add onto your check. But if you're rostered on the bench, even if you don't play, like there's an extra $600 in your check. Yeah. Whether like it's like those little things and these little contract permutations are fascinating when you dive into them in the other leagues. And that's the kind of things we're forced to talk about when a team gets absolutely trounced 3-0. Are there positives from the buildup and the ability to create so many shots, even though none of them were on target? Is there anything positive from that, or are we taking pretty much the majority of the offense here and saying you were against a team that was just sitting in a low block, you get no points and no credit for your midfield buildup?
I would
or minimal points and credit.
Some of the shots were things you could look at as positives, but the majority of them were not, because some of them actually did come out of good possession and good passing that led to, decent sequences, decent shots, such as Leuven's shot and Hartle's shot, the two that rang off the woodwork for St. Louis tonight. And you also kind of have to think about if Hartle's shot was about an inch and a half lower, how much different that match would have been had they scored that goal at the start of the match. So that's something interesting to think about. Not that it matters, but it is in fact a what if. But
I feel like
some of the shots were positive. Some of them, you're right. It was you're sitting, but it was the same thing for Dallas. Dallas had a lot of shots, but almost all of them were completely harmless outside of the ones they scored. There was, I think, one or two others that were actually threatening.
Target, though. I know there were like
all like trickling through
4 or 5 of them
20
were
yards out, 25 yards out, and they weren't actually harmless. So I mean, I'm okay with conceding those types of shots, to be honest with you, because it's very frustrating for an opponent when they're just like, that's all that they can get out is those kind of low percentage shots. I'm okay with those. So, I think it can be said kind of similarly for both teams in this match. Some of their shots were valuable positives. Some of them were not.
It's like I know Ostrak and Volum can move the ball. It's just and I liked the consistently long balls to the outside to Totland.
They didn't do it though. They didn't do it tonight. It was like there was 2 or 3 in the first half, and like that was.
I was gonna say early, but yeah, I was gonna say
to watch the second half because he was doing the Cardinals postgame show. He didn't get to watch all of the second half, but in the second half there wasn't much.
Yeah, they didn't do it as much.
There wasn't. Yeah, I mean it was bad.
And there wasn't a lot of the long balls to Klaus that we saw last week. That might be more of the in between the line stuff not being available because of how close FC Dallas's lines were when they're playing in that low block, so maybe takes away that Klaus factor. But you got to figure out a way to consistently get the ball forward. You're better when you're playing the ball in the air than on the ground. This team is. I think that's been consistently ever since Critch took over. This team's better when they can play the ball vertically, and I'm not sure what disappeared with those long balls to Totland up the right side early on in the game. Did Dallas take it away, or did you just kind of stop taking advantage of it? But that. Getting rid of that and that evaporating, I think definitely hurt the attack for the final 60 minutes.
I want to hear your answer first, Rock.
Is there any player on this roster you'd grade higher than a C other than Bergen for this season? Yeah, I mean, João Klaus is higher than a C. Conrad Volum's higher than a C. Ostrak's, a low B, but he's higher for the last few games. Kessler, he's been injured, but he's higher.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do injuries play a role in their grade? Because if not, then Kessler's an A.
Yeah, Kessler's obviously
a solid A, not an A+, but
Klaus,
a solid A.
Volum, Kessler, Ostrak. But again, Ostrak's also like a relative thing. Like I don't expect him to be a starter, so I'm giving him like a mid B for what I think he should be, which is the third center midi in your rotation.
Yeah.
Beyond that, maybe Tots.
Honestly, I wouldn't. I think I would give Tots a C, like a flat C. I don't even think I'd give him a C+ this season. So
Hartle, you give Hartle more than a C.
I'd probably give Betcher a C.
I think I'd give Betcher right at a C.
Yeah,
I'd give Ben Lunt, but I give Ben Lunt a B.
No, I'd definitely give Ben Lunt at least a B.
Give Ben Lunt like a B+.
Yeah,
give Ben Lunt a B+.
I mean, he did
Money Mike, I guess is the name. Wallum is a C-. I can't agree with that one. I'm sorry. He covers an insane amount of ground. Like he's playing a little bit out of position right now at the 6, and I think maybe they're trying to play into his game by letting the 6s range so far right to left like we've seen them doing in these last 2 games. But I think Vollum, I think he's a solid B. I think he was an A early in the season. I think he's come down a little bit, but
I agree. I think he's an A at the start of the
I think
season.
I think he's a solid B.
Overall, I think I wouldn't give him higher than a C+, to be honest with you, for overall so far. Maybe a B-.
There's been 4 or 5 games where he's legitimately been the best player on the field.
At the very start of the season.
Yeah, I mean,
recently
there was one. There was
the
the second or third game in Critch's run where he was the best player on the field. So I mean, he's not playing as well. And again, I think part of it's playing that he's not playing in the position he wants to play, and I think the position he should be playing is out on the flank in the midfield, whether you want to call it a wing back or a midfielder in a 3-back system, either way you want to call it. He's playing a little bit out of his most comfortable spot, his most ideal spot, and so I'd say he's been solid. I wouldn't say C- though.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I would go as low as a C-, but I would definitely. I could hear an argument for a flat C, and I would give him either a C+ or a B-. But I mean, obviously, it kind of depends how he does the rest of the season too. Because
he's always behind the play. But we talked about this in Boots on the Ground. How many times is it his fault? How many times is it just because you can't ask a guy to cover 50 yards of positioning in 5 seconds? Like, this is a thing we've been going back to.
Yes, but he shouldn't be that high up.
That's part of the game plan. It's not his decision. You can't tell me as I watch a game for 90 minutes and I'm watching both him and Ostrak sweep wildly up to the left and then wildly up to the right and do it in minute 20 and then do it again in minute 80, that they're not being told to do that because they're not doing it just because they're doing it throughout the entire game, sweeping left to right through the central, both of them high left, both of them high right. And so that's part of the game plan because they're playing an extremely aggressive style. And this goes back to Bradley Carnell in 2023 when people would bitch and moan about Anthony Marcanic getting players getting behind Anthony Marcanic. Was it because Anthony Marcanic was a bad defender?
Sometimes.
Not saying he's a great defender, but
a 4-back.
Most of the time it was because if you keep asking fullbacks to be your highest and widest players, they are going to get runs in behind them over and over and over and over again. And so you watch City right now, we keep watching it in the passing networks. Who's high and wide and who's the highest and the widest player on St. Louis City? Thomas Totland.
And so Conrad Vollum needs to be dropped in there.
He should be dropped in there. But we also broke down in Boots on the Ground. We saw plays where Tots and where Vollum and Ostrak are dropping into those spots consistently. But again, it's hard for them to go from the high on the left side trying to make an attacking run where the ball gets turned over, the defense switches it, and now all of a sudden there's space behind Tots, and they're on the opposite side of the field. And so I'm not saying they're not blameless. I'm not saying that. But this is why every time the broadcast or we point out, look at this attacking run and look how Klaus is receiving the ball in midfield and there's 6 players breaking forward. Yeah, that's a great thing. Until it isn't. And there's been a lot of until it isn't over the last 2 games.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about that. Daniel Gavura says it's going to take a couple of years to fix this roster, at least 2 to 3 more transfer windows. No, it'll take this transfer window and the winter.
Certainly, it shouldn't take more than that.
If it takes more than that, then absolutely you should be on the Lutz out train. If this roster with how many players are in contract years right now cannot significantly improve by March, you sell the team. Just get rid of everybody. Give up, sell the stadium, and get an NFL team back or something. But that will not happen. This team will be significantly better this time in March. Honestly, they'll probably be at least a decent bit better after the summer window here. Especially if they start to get a little healthier too, with Leuven being able to start matches, Timo Baumgartel, maybe Henrik Kessler comes back, Durkin's close to coming back, a couple of key players that can stabilize things defensively and let City, be more free flowing in the attacking third. You could see this team improve a little bit before we even get to the winter. And you probably will, and it won't matter because the season's a wash, but you will at least get to enjoy the matches a little bit more probably as we get nearer to the end of the season. And then by the winter, we're going to see a decent bit of roster overhaul and a significantly improved team. So no, it will absolutely not take 2 or 3 more transfer windows. It'll just take getting through the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that's going to be a little bit of a stretch. It's going to be a little bit rough here. One way to make it less rough, get some more youth bodies in here and get the kids playing. That's one way to do it. Unfortunately, though, Go back and listen to our interview with Lutz Pfannenstiel. It doesn't look like Mekhi Joyner is going to be getting a lot of time with the first team. And one of the factors of that, and this is just me just disagreeing with it, but this is their opinion, and this is how they're going to roll with it. Because the decision you have to make is when you're dealing with a lost season is the potential benefit of playing professional minutes outweigh the potential risk of trying to develop on a bad team. And I honestly thought with the way that David Critchley's been talking about the attitudes of this team, with the way the players have been talking about attitudes in training, I thought that they would fall on the right side of things. They would say it's okay for us to risk it. Let's play a guy because the results don't matter. But then
I've disagreed with you from the start,
and you have, and then Lutz directly says it. You don't want to throw him in the Shark Tank with a bad team. So is the team bad or not, guys? Like, is the roster bad or not? Is the mindset in the locker room bad or not? Because if it's just injuries in the locker room and the talent on the roster is pretty good and the locker room mindset's pretty good and it's just injuries that means this team's bad, then isn't that actually not a bad situation for a young player to enter into?
Well, it still is on the pitch. It's just not off the pitch and in training and in the locker room and in the weight room. It's not a bad situation, but on the pitch, it still is.
Just the most risk-adverse, time-wasting decision I've ever seen. Very angry about that.
Annoying. I personally agree with this decision. Rock and I have gone back and forth on and off camera a lot about this.
Makes no sense.
And
makes no sense. Let's 19-year-old scores on us this week. 18-year-olds playing well against us last week. Another 18-year-old or 17-year-old draws a penalty against us this week. But no. Our 18-year-old,
22
we have to handle.
22 years old, drew the penalty. 20 years old, scored the goal. So let's not get too carried away.
No, I'm saying. Last week was. Or he was 19, the guy who scored 9, wasn't he?
No, he's 20.
20, whatever. 20, 18, whatever. It's not that big of a difference. Bottom line is, why is our guy wrapped in bubble wrap? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, look, I totally do understand your argument. And you're not, like, completely off base to, like, have that opinion. It's not a bad, like, opinion. I just don't hold the same opinion. I think that it's very important for the long-term
development. So you agree he's wrapped in bubble wrap?
I mean, yeah. In this case, yeah. But I think it's justified.
Then that's
for
your
the end of
then.
this season. It's next season, which would piss me off.
But you're not going.
Give him an opportunity.
If they sign a DP winger, then how is he going to play next year? Where's he going to
bench?
Oh,
as he should.
That's useful. Let's use the 19-year-old off the bench, despite the fact that he's got more talent than that. Another waste of a season. Another complete waste of talent. Because wrap the guy in bubble wrap.
Okay, let me get this straight. So you just told me you would rather put Mekhi Joyner on the pitch than sign a designated player right winger who's going to score goals and make this team better. That's what you just told me. So is that your stance? Because that's what you just said.
I'm saying find out who he is this year so that I can make that decision with more information next year.
You're not going to find out who he is.
Play him this year.
You're going to end up burning him, selling him for too cheap.
How would you burn him? Why would you be burning him by playing him this year?
Because it stunts it can stunt the development of a player. That's the reason that they have him wrapped in bubble wrap.
But you're saying it can. I don't think that's the more likely option.
I honestly, given this team and they've gone through coaches, the locker room is
apparently great.
Yeah, that's what
everyone's great.
I bet that's what they tell you. Yeah, I'm sure they say that. I'm sure they want you.
I'm just saying
that.
All these things. Can't
I just
be true.
don't think it's a good situation for Mekhi Joyner, and for a sporting director like Lutz, who has been there for so many players from start to finish in their careers. And if you think about Leuven and Klaus and these guys, he's been with them since they were like youth players. He knows what it takes for the development of these players. Huh?
I bet they played when they were young.
Maybe. I bet the situation was better. Mekhi Joyner, this is a situation right now where and by the way, to Colin's point here in the chat, it's not about Joyner's play for me. It's about is it going to hurt his development? Because the entire point of having a young player come up and play is either he's going to dominate for you or you're going to continue to develop him so he becomes a starter or you can sell him. And if you stop his development, you're completely wasting a player, not only for your team and your financial situation, but for his career.
Playing
you can't do that as a sporting director.
Playing against higher level talent only stunts a player's growth if they're mentally weak. And if he's mentally weak, he's never going to become a great player anyway.
It's not about playing against higher talent.
That's exactly what it's about.
No, it's about playing on a bad team. No. It's a bad dynamic.
I want him to. I need him to push his personal game against other players not in practice. He can train till the cat comes home with the first team. It's still not giving him the actual level of first team football that he needs to be challenged by to get a better player. In anything in life, you will never get better unless you are challenged. The only way Mekhi
What
Joyner,
kind of habits is he going to develop on the right wing when he can't get the ball on a clean pass because all of the decent players in the midfield are injured? He's going to develop lazy habits. He's going to develop not forward thinking and progressive passing habits. He's going to develop an ability to not want to carry the ball as frequently. He's going to want the ball off his foot.
Fine. They have no problem with young players carrying the ball.
This is just not a good situation to throw Mekhi Joyner in. I really, really strongly believe
a situation where next year, where you have to bring him off the bench, and now every single move is scrutinized. How did you turn that ball over?
No, it's not. Every single moment's an opportunity. When you're that young coming off the bench, you're expected to make mistakes.
But when a team has to win games, every moment is more scrutinized. So every mistake now has a magnifying glass. He's not going to be
put on
every
the pitch
time
in those
he says
high intensity.
Every
moments.
time he says, "I want to cut inside to my right foot here and try to get the goal off," he's thinking, "Yeah, but if I get dispossessed, they're going to hold that against me." Right now,
he's thinking if I score this goal, they're going to play me more.
He'd be thinking that right now.
No, because he'd be either playing or not playing regardless because of the situation this team's in. The only thing he would be playing for is his own development, which would be stunted because he's on a terrible team or a team that's not playing well.
You need to give me a concrete example of players who, because they played professionally, when their talent level was at a professional level,
I don't think Mekhi Joyner's talent level is at an MLS starting level right now.
I didn't say it was at a starting level.
Okay, so why would we want to start him then?
I had at no point I have not used the word start.
Not
at any point this discussion today. I'm not using the word start at any point in this discussion. I'm talking about playing him consistently with the first team this year. And all I'm saying is that telling me, and by the way, with a coach who apparently is going to get consideration to take over for long term, you are telling me that this team is not in a good enough position to where you can develop a young player. But the training's fine. It's just that in the moment in the game, we're worried about hurting him. I'm not saying that individually any of these thought processes are incorrect or illogical or anything. My point is, all of these things cannot be true. Something is one of these threads is much thinner there than they are letting it on. If this is the issue, either they're not as confident in the future of the coach, they're not as confident in the locker room, where the locker room is, or they're not as confident with the roster on the field as they are. And my other thing is I get that the people are hurt, but going forward, Edward Leuven, Thomas Ostrak, Conrad Valum, Thomas Totland, Cedric Teuchert, Simon Bescher, João Klaus. These are all guys, except for Conrad Valum, who are going to be on the team next year. And he's going to be surrounded by these players as well. These are all players who are healthy right now and are going to be the players that surround him on the pitch. Everyone that he's surrounded on the pitch this year is also going to be who's surrounded on the pitch next year for the most part. There's got a lot of the most important ones. I know there's going to be 6 or 7 changes of smaller names, but that's not the ones we're talking about. We're talking about the big names. A lot of those ones are going to still be here.
That is a very fair
next
point.
year. And so if these are all the guys, I don't understand why it's such a risk. I'm not saying it's not a risk. I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying that there's no risk. There is obviously risk. My point is that this is a risk-adverse decision, and that those aren't all. I could be 100% wrong. I pointed out that Timo Baumgartel's got some pretty good defensive stats, and then he did that for the second goal. So you can't always know, no matter how many things you have. I'm just trying to stack up all the facts that we have, and I'm not getting the answer. I think that logically makes sense. Exactly like the same thing with the Tyson Pierce thing. I'm stacking all these things up. I'm stacking all these things up, and I'm like, individually, all these things could be true, but together, Jenga don't work. It's falling apart. That's all I'm saying.
It's fair enough.
Because and you just it seems like you have so much time because you just started, but every 6 months is like a new season almost. And I feel like they burned the first 6 month season of this year, and they're already not taking advantage of the second 6 months season of the year, which is the second half of the season. Everything's dead. We don't got to worry about W's. So let's just try to be as progressive as possible on the field. And to me, they're missing one of the biggest chances to be progressive. Just like tonight, they burned one of the best chances to be progressive. And I'm just a little bit confused. I know I get the overall argument. We want to be careful. We don't want to push people. But also, I think there's also a point of, do you have the luxury of being of this team when, because of where you started, you only have 2 or 3 youth players available to you right now, whereas other teams have 6 or 7 guys because they've had these guys for the last 6 or 7 years in their youth academy. You're in year 4 of your academy, and so you just don't have the numbers coming up yet. And
St. Louis City played 5 guys who have come through the academy.
Yeah, I love that. But my point is, I love that. But
one started.
How many of those guys were? But how many of those guys played with the academy because we bought them when there was no first team, and so they played with the second team?
I don't think any of them.
Who? Wait,
maybe Akil Watts. Yeah, Orozco started.
Okay.
Reed came through the academy. Watts came through the academy. Tyson Pierce came through the academy. Oh,
okay.
No, 4.
Okay.
4. I miscounted. 4 guys through the academy played tonight.
Okay.
And one started.
But Pearson. But Reed and Orozco are different though, because I'm talking about guys that you build through your academy that you didn't like pick off the scrap heap of a different academy when they were 18 years old. It's different when you're getting a guy 15. That's all I'm saying is they don't have the years long pipeline.
They haven't existed quite long enough yet. Maybe in like a year or 2.
And so maybe I'm going to just grasp at straws into that. One of the most fun facts of soccer is getting to play the academy, and so I'm seeing an academy talent, so I'm saying play him. I want to see him play him. I might be doing that, and I'm sure a lot of St. Louis fans are guilty of that. But I also think a part of that is because there's 2 names now that we're hearing about, and Caden Glover hasn't developed. But to Lutz Fondersteel's point, and he said this on KMOX to Tom Ackerman last week, he said it to Randy Carricker and myself on Friday. They see 6 or 7 guys right now coming up through the system who are MLS talents, and that's just guys right now who are developing, and obviously things can completely change to that point. This is never linear. U15 MVPs might not be U18 MVPs. Right. Yeah. U15 bench warmers might be U18 MVPs. You never know. You got a pretty big dart, and the bullseye is not that small.
Yeah.
Throw it. That's all I'm saying. Throw it.
I respect your opinion.
and I guess more than that, like he's gotta get bench minutes in the second half, right? I'm not saying start him, that's fine, but like
you're talking about Joyner?
Yeah, like are they really not even going to get him a supplemental contract and actually get it? Like
I agree with you.
Let's take this to my logical thing, which is I'm arguing from a point that they're not going to get him any more bench minutes almost because they're not going to there's not going to be a spot on the supplemental roster. You obviously pointed out that they could loan away Caden Glover, that opens up the supplemental spot, and that gives you Mekhi Joyner for bench minutes.
It's possible.
I would be fine if that happens. I'm arguing from a very large extreme of Mekhi Joyner plays very little in the last 11 games of the season.
Yeah, because
I hope I'm wrong, but my bottom line is, this is the last thing I say. Mekhi Joyner has to play more than one match the rest of this season. Bottom line.
It's fair. I don't disagree. I just don't think he should, unless he plays like a phenomenal match. Someone gets injured at halftime and he comes on in the second half and just dominates and scores a goal and whatever. I don't think he should be starting matches the rest of the season. I think he should be getting consistent bench minutes for, maybe as much as 15 to 20 minutes a match, and just go from there and let him develop, let him get, assimilated into the pitch in MLS. I don't want him having any kind of responsibility. I don't want him having any kind of pressure. I just want him to be able to get touches on the ball on an MLS pitch. And I prefer for that to happen next year, but I'm completely fine with him with it happening at the end of this season. And I would love to see him get on the supplemental roster regardless, and at least get some minutes, even if it's not going to be consistent at the end of this year. So I agree with you on that front for sure.
Yeah, and any final? We didn't talk a lot about this actual game tonight because it wasn't a very fun game to watch. Ended up getting a lot into the youth player stuff, and honestly, in a season like this is what we should be talking about. Yeah. Something else we should be talking about today is our friends over at DraftKings and their new app at Pick 6, and you should check them out with our promo code STL Sports. Thank the Lord, baseball season's back. You didn't think you'd hear a Cardinals fan saying that tonight, did you? But it makes it a lot more fun in my Pick 6 app on DraftKings, because I can look forward to the Cardinals game tomorrow, and I can take more on however many runs they're expected to allow against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So that offense and that defense not looking good right now for the Cardinals. So as the game populates for tomorrow, you just pick more or less on whatever stat you want. Usually in baseball, the ones that I like to add into my pick six the most are hits, runs, and RBIs for whatever bats I think are feeling great there. Check out some righty-lefty splits, especially if the Cardinals are facing a righty. Go ahead and take all those lefties. Take more or less on hits, runs, and RBIs. You can take more or less on strikeouts thrown, home runs hit in the game, all those kind of things with the baseball stats. And with all the other sports, soccer, WNBA, it's all different numbers. You can do points, rebounds, plus assists when it comes to basketball, all the different ways, and you can mix and match across games with DraftKings Pick 6, promo code STL Sports. We're deep into the season, and that's why we've teamed up with DraftKings, because it just makes it more fun when you get to play, especially when you get into the dog days of baseball. The all-new way to play your daily fantasy sports, it's DraftKings Pick 6, promo code STL Sports. All customers who play with just $5 will get a $50 bonus pick. That's 10 extra picks to keep the action going. So $5, you get $50 in bonus picks. I should say $50 in bonus picks. So $5 get you 10 more plays at $5 a piece. 5 for 50, 10 extra picks, keep the action going all week long. Easy to start, fun to follow, and gives you a whole new way to stay connected to the game. In fact, it was the only reason that I was watching the Cardinals today. I did have a couple Cardinals go over hits, runs, and RBIs. So guess what? I didn't cash. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code STL Sports when you sign up. Only on DraftKings Pick 6, where the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
This is the City Central post game on STL Sports Central. Any final thoughts on this 3-0 loss tonight, Will Bratton?
Yeah, I'm seeing, I want to say one thing, and I'm about to actually post this on X too. A lot of people are coming for Yasiel Orozco after that bad moment. And look, here's the thing. You can criticize that moment because obviously it was a terrible moment, but you can't suddenly turn and say Yasiel Orozco sucks. He shouldn't be on the field, blah, 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 like a bunch of reactionary losers. Do not go and say any garbage like that on social media. It's so frustrating when I see that stuff, and I'm seeing it plenty right now on social media. It's absolutely not true. Criticize the moment. You cannot forget all the other good moments that he's had, and the fact that he very much earned this contract that he just signed, and he didn't even play a bad match up until that final moment when the match was already over, mind you, in the 87th minute, down 2-0. The match was literally already over. He's tired. It's hot. Things happen. So kill that narrative. And if you see it on social media, reply to it and tell that person they're an idiot for posting that. That's all I got to say on that.
There it is. That's Will Bratton. I'm Matthew Rocchio. This has been the City Central post game. We'll be back for some city talk midweek for Boots on the Ground. It'll be an interesting one as we keep on talking about this rough one, keep on looking forward to the future, but always more to talk about in St. Louis City SC. And of course, with the transfer window opening up here in just over a week, or exactly a week, I should say, on the 24th. What day is it today? 19th? Less than a week. I can't do math anymore. With the transfer window opening in less than a week, we should have plenty to talk about with St. Louis City SC. We expect maybe announcements on more players this week from Minnesota United. So more to talk about coming up on Boots on the Ground. This has been City Central Postgame presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Thank you to everyone who jumped into the chat. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to us right here on the STL Sports Central YouTube. Check out Will's articles on STLSportsCentral.com. And again, stay tuned to YouTube as we will be back next time. City's playing midweek for Boots on the Ground. Every day for Randy Carricker Show. Every day for Card Central 365. And anytime I say a city event is happening, that's any St. Louis event in the city is happening, we're going live afterwards on STL Sports Central. So make sure you, again, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. This has been City Central Postgame. Have a great night, St. Louis. I'm sure it'll be better than whatever City did.